This is Joe Wong. Welcome to the Trap Set. Life has slowed down as a result of the coronavirus pandemic, so we're using the extra time at home as an opportunity to create and release a new episode of the Trap Set every day until further notice. We'll record by phone and, by necessity, experiment with a more raw and immediate production style. It's my hope that these daily episodes will give you a sense of community amidst a backdrop of social distance. Today's guest is my friend Laura Veirs. Laura's a singer-songwriter with over 10 albums to her name, both as a solo artist and as a member of the supergroup Case Lang Veirs. Laura lives in Portland, Oregon, and I spoke to her from Trap Set HQ in Pasadena.
Hello.
Hi. How are you feeling?
I feel fine. I got over some kind of weird bug last week, and my kids are healthy, and I have a babysitter who lives with us who's healthy and is helping me with the kids who are out of school. So we're hanging in there. It's definitely a bizarre time, though, since we're pretty much under total lockdown, as I assume you are as well.
Yeah, how old are your kids now?
They're almost 7 and 10.
So they're both out of school. Is the 7-year-old in first grade?
Yes.
Oh, that's an awful time to get pulled out of school, huh?
Yeah, I mean, but they give us like a mini curriculum, and my babysitter and I are kind of structuring the days so that we're keeping up with their studies and getting them outside and playing in the park and stuff a little bit. But yeah, it's a weird time for them for sure. And their social life is so important to them. And they're like, why can't we have play dates? I'm like, well, soon we will be able to. But right now I've been having to explain why we're all doing this and what the isolation is about. And they're definitely getting stir crazy, and we're doing a little more screen time than is probably advised. But you just got to get through the days.
Like how much screen time?
So right now I'm letting them have an hour a day, which normally they get 15 minutes of music time, which is for them is like special Apple Music time. And because they're really into the global top hits, mostly hip hop and rap, and they listen to the non-explicit stuff, but they're just obsessed with that music. And so to them, like that's their favorite things, to get 15 minutes of screen time as music time. And then they get one movie night a week and one movie morning a week.
That's pretty reasonable.
That's reasonable, and that's their normal schedule. But now I'm doing an hour a day, and plus the movie night, plus the movie morning. So it's 45 minutes more per day than is usual for us. But that's still, less than a lot of people do. And
You're still better than everybody else, Laura.
I mean, that's clearly what I'm trying to get at.
And I trust you eat all organic food as well.
Yeah, and we grow it all. So everything, we're totally in-house. Like when you talk about lockdown at our house, like we're totally locked down. I'm kidding. We do not grow our own food. We do not have chickens.
You do live in Portland.
I know. We don't have chickens. We don't have llamas. We're totally behind the game, the Portland game.
When you were in first grade, what are some memories you have from that time?
I'm wrestling Tyler Carpenter and winning.
Who's Tyler?
He was my crush.
Okay. And so then what happened after that?
I think we became boyfriend and girlfriend.
That's how you won his affections.
He was like an early feminist, apparently.
What else do you remember about that time?
I was a class president. So the teachers asked me my opinions about the playground remodel. And I talked with some architects about that. And they took me seriously. And it was pretty amazing. They actually wanted to know what the class president's real opinions were about play structures. And like how to make a good playground.
Oh.
I don't remember. Probably just like, let's have some swings and bars and like jungle gyms and let's get it. I don't know. But they actually cared what the kids thought. It was cool.
Where did you go to school?
In Colorado Springs, Colorado.
Yeah, which I typically think of as a pretty conservative place.
It was, except for my dad and mom were teachers. So my dad taught at Colorado College, which is like a liberal hub of the town. And then my mom was a school teacher. So they were liberals in a sea of conservatives. But there is a really tight progressive liberal community there. It's just sort of small. And it's gotten smaller probably as the focus on the family and the military and the big sprawling right wing people have sort of taken over the town. And we don't live there. My parents don't live there anymore, so I've sort of lost touch. But I did grow up in a good community of people, like minded people who, were really, frankly, just like outdoor buffs, like tons of outdoor stuff all the time.
How much screen time did you have when you were a kid?
We had a TV, and I remember a lot of fighting with my brother. And there's the family story is my dad threw the TV out the window. But I don't really know if he did. Um, I love saying that. I love imagining that he did because I
But I
can
don't
relate to
understand.
that.
Was it just gone one day?
We did not have TV for some time, and I don't remember how long it was, but they just got so fed up with the fighting. And I feel that way sometimes with my kids. Like the screen time is one of the most challenging parenting things, like for this generation of parents. It's just how do you control it? Because they're so addictive. Obviously, we're all addicted to them. And so I'm trying to teach them a semblance of balance with it, and it's really hard.
Right, because you don't want to just completely deny them
Yeah.
having access to that world.
Yeah, we're not Amish. We're gonna be using screens. It's just that they're so compelling, and then if I restrict them, they're like, "We're bored." I'm like, "Boredom is the fertile playground of creativity," and just like,
Yeah,
they're just rolling their eyes
just
like,
what
"We
every
want the
kid wants to
screens."
hear.
Exactly.
What kind of music was on in your house?
A lot of classical music, a lot of NPR, and then occasionally my brother. Well, when my brother he's older, he's 3.5 years older. He in high school got into the hits of I guess it was the late '80s at that point. So I was listening to REM and the Cars and like boy bands like that he was into.
Wait, are the
And
Cars a boy band?
I don't know, not really, but like bands that were all boys.
Hmm.
Like that was a thing for me growing up because my brother showed me how to play guitar when I was 18 or 17, and I learned some chords and started writing songs and stuff, but I was like, I did not see any girls playing music because in my town it was pretty conservative overall. And there wasn't like this feminist punk rock thing like we have in the Northwest that goes back decades at all. Like there were no girls in bands that I ever saw, ever. So I was like, well, I guess I'm not going to be in a band. Whereas I have friends who are professional musicians now, women who were like, screw that, I'm going to be in a band. I don't care if there's no girls in bands. I'm going to be in a band. And they were in bands, but I didn't make that leap. So I just wasn't in a band until I went to college and saw women playing music and joined them and started punk band and all that stuff. But I did not really listen to a lot of music or know about music until like 20 years old.
Did you have a desire to be in bands when you were
I did.
younger?
I did. Because he was in a band and his friends were all in bands, but they were all boys. And I just didn't make the leap.
Hmm. And then where did you go to college?
I went to Carleton in Minnesota.
And so, who were some of the bands that you saw that kind of shone the light or shone the way for you?
Well, we were a very insular college town community, so it was mostly just unknown college people making up their own bands, and me being like, "That's cool," and it sort of like inspired. They were inspired by different punk rock communities that they came from in high school, like around the Chicago area or around the East Coast or the West Coast. They, were like, they came to the college with that understanding that you can start a band from scratch and you can manage yourselves and make your own posters and silk screen your own record covers and record yourselves and press up your own 7 inches and then play some shows and maybe even try to tour. And so occasionally we would go into Minneapolis and see some bands. I saw this band called the Saltines, and that was like a women's punk band. And we listened to a lot of Bikini Kill and Slater Kinney and those bands, but we didn't see them because they weren't touring through our town. And we were really just focused mostly on our studies and not going into Minneapolis, which was an hour away anyway. We were in this tiny, tiny little, in the middle of a cornfield college town so we just made our own fun. And a lot of my friends from that scene set the stage for me to become an independent musician. And I'm always going to be grateful to them for that. And some of them are still friends and they're independent artists of different kinds. And it was just so cool to meet them because I didn't know about that. I didn't know about underground DIY anything.
What did you want to do when you entered school?
I got really interested in Chinese and studied Mandarin for a few years and went to China several times and lived there for 6 months at one point and did some. Later, I became a geology major. I realized like I didn't really want to be an Asian studies major or like a diplomat. I had been thinking I might be like a diplomat who travels to China, and then I switched over to science. And
Wait, do you still speak Chinese fluently?
no, I was pretty good, um, especially conversationally, just like very basic stuff, but never like I could never really read the newspaper. And I learned a ton of characters and but I never could like really be fluent with reading or writing. And the speaking was fine when we're talking about basics, but I didn't become fluent at all. And now when I went over there about 5 years ago for a one off, I was like pretty bummed at how much it had gone away, but there was still enough in there to like order in a restaurant and like get a cab and say hi to people.
Oh man, I wish I would have known that because I wrote some songs for the new Aquafina show on Comedy Central, and we were looking for singers that could sing in Chinese. And I bet you know it well enough that you could fake it, right?
I think you need a Chinese native speaker to do that. No, I'm not your girl.
Okay. I sang some, and I'm not a Chinese native speaker, but I just had someone coaching me the whole time on every syllable.
Well, good for you.
All right. Well, fine. I guess next season we won't call you if you don't want the gig. So wait, then
Oh,
you went into geology.
yes.
What did you think you were going to do when you got out of school? Did you have like a
I
vision for? The reason why I asked this is because you seem like such a goal-oriented person.
well, I am, but I think that I don't know. I actually at the end I was like, I don't want to be a scientist. I want to be a musician. So at the end of college, I had not I wasn't failing my classes, but I was getting C's, which to me was like failing because otherwise I was like A plus student. And but I had to just fallen off into the world of music and just was totally devoted to that. So I realized like I don't want to do anything but be a musician. And I had a boyfriend at the time who said, you can't make a living as a musician. And I was like, oh, really? He's like, yeah, no one can. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Watch me. So I was like, graduated and moved to Seattle and just like had a fire into my ass to like prove to him that I could do it.
Were
And
you still with him when you moved to Seattle?
no, we broke up for a while. He was a little younger. He did end up moving out to Seattle and we got back together after I was like dating other people and kind of like it was an on and off thing for a while. But he's a great person and good person. But it was just I think he was just being realistic, honestly. He was just being
Yeah, he
very
was pretty much.
realistic.
Yeah, yeah.
But it was a great inspiration to me to be like, well, let me show you. I'm going to show you without even talking to you about it. I'm going to show myself that I can do this.
It's interesting that you went from not seeing any women in bands and just assuming that you couldn't be a musician to then by the time you were graduating from college, having that contrarian streak in you or the desire to prove yourself.
Well, I knew that I had some kind of um, like, well, when I first wrote a song, and that was really, I think the first song was in college. I think I said I wrote songs in high school, but I didn't. I learned some songs, like some Joni Mitchell songs, but um, I really loved songwriting. I just loved it. I loved it so much. It was so fun.
What did it
And
feel like in your body when you were writing songs?
well, to me, it was like the best flow, just the most flow state thing I had experienced up to that point. It was like, and
How can
it
you
was
describe it to someone who hasn't done it?
just like time is suspended. You're in the moment and you're discovering something from nothing. And it's a beautiful feeling of discovery and creativity and flow and just like joyful presence, being present in the moment of creation. And, occasionally, actually, quite often, I can still get there, knock on wood. And it just I realized it was fun for me. People seemed to like it. Like I started doing open mics and I felt that it was a perfect mix of my two sides of my head, which is like the very scientific, like goal oriented type A, like work your ass off side, and then the like very free spirited, just space out, the opposite, the artist side that's free associative and like kid like and fun and goofy and dark and all that. And it's still like that for me. Music is the perfect synthesis of my two selves, and I feel that that's why I continue to do it and continue to find joy in it. And the other thing about it is it's so mysterious. Like I've been teaching songwriting lately through Stanford's continuing education courses online and then some workshops. And I used to teach on and off, but it took a bunch of years off from that. But it's just so fascinating to try to talk to people about how to write songs because I don't even know how to do it. I don't even know how I do it or how anyone does it. It's so mysterious. There are things that I can talk to them about, and I can get them to write them. I've got some tricks up my sleeve now to help them write songs, but it's so mysterious. Like creativity, songwriting, music making, lyrics, the combination of poetry and music, the ability to access these emotional places that resonate with other people and myself, the self-expression, it's infinite. It's so infinite. And that is why I want to keep doing it.
Yeah, do you feel like it's relatively easy for you to access those emotional places for yourself? Or do you sometimes get into your head and like get out of balance?
Well, I recently went through a divorce. I'm still actually getting divorced. It's been about 6 months of separation from my ex, who was my music producer for 20 years. So it's like a multifaceted, and the father of my children. So very complex separation. But I couldn't write about that in the beginning. It was too emotional. It was like I didn't want to. I was just too. It was too heavy. I couldn't go there. But then after maybe 4 months went by, I did. Well, one song just flew out of me super fast, and I released it as a single. And it was just one that I actually wrote as I recorded it with my phone.
What's that
And
song called?
it's called "I Was a Fool." And I loved that song because it was like one of those spiritual moments where you just feel like I told my friend I felt like a wave was coming, like a surfing wave. You better catch it. And it came out. The song was finished as it came out.
So let's come back to that later. But
And so that was one way of like accessing deeper heart emotions that felt very simple.
mhm.
But mostly I wasn't writing at that time because I felt overwhelmed. But then I started teaching this online class through Stanford, and I decided that I needed to write alongside my students or I wouldn't be really doing a good job as a teacher. And then I started writing about my divorce and was able to access a lot of deep emotions about it. And it was actually kind of, sort of healing, I guess. I was able to process some of the emotions in a way that felt more, I guess, useful than just crying or just riding my bike or whatever else I was doing to cope with it.
Yeah, I mean, I have a theory that when you're doing something creative, that you're accessing a part of yourself that your conscious mind isn't necessarily aware of or can't articulate with the left side of your brain. Do you,
Yes.
so, what did you learn about yourself when you wrote "I Was a Fool"?
Um, well, what I learned was that after having done this for so long, writing songs, it's been like 25 years. Um, sometimes things just click, and I have the capacity to write and record a song in one sitting. And I didn't know that. So I learned that about myself. And it's a cool song. It has nuance, it has vocal changes that I've never done, it has unusual bar lengths and chord changes. I mean, it's basically the same chords I always use, like A minor, C, G, and F or something like that, or E minor. But I don't know. I just learned that I learned that I've greased the wheels, the wheels are turning, and um, I can do this and I can do it well and I like doing it and I'm going to keep doing it. And I can record myself with my iPhone and it sounds cool.
Well, did you feel a sense of doubt when you were going through this divorce? Because you were not only divorcing yourself from a life partner, but from somebody who had been a creative partner for a long time?
For sure. And he was a very heavily involved editor for me. Like I've always been a prolific songwriter who writes like 100 songs at least per album cycle. And he would listen through those with me and help me figure out which ones to keep and toss. And that was really helpful. You know, he was a good editor. But at the same time, I kind of just like got lazy, maybe lazy or just, I don't know. I just let him decide. And now I'm being forced to decide which songs do I really like. And I've written a bunch since we broke up. And I've recorded some. I've been starting to record myself with Logic and a little mic and my little MIDI thing and making beats. And some of it's very stripped down. I think my goal is to make a really stripped down record. I've tried to do that before, but somehow we always end up piling stuff on it.
It's easy
But
to do if you own a recording studio.
yeah, it is. And that's his art form. But now I'm getting into it. And it's cool. Like I've never cared at all about recording. And now I actually
Yeah,
kind of
that's
care
what you
about
used to
it.
tell me.
Yeah, but now I care because I want to know. I think I want to know what I can do, what I can do to make my music sound different.
So what have you learned so far?
Well, I borrowed my friend's Neumann, not a super fancy one, like $1,000 one, not a $15,000 one, but I don't know. I I don't know. It sounds good. Like I can record myself. I can make a good sounding recording, is what I learned.
Right, especially if you're only recording a voice and a guitar, right?
Yeah. And I recorded some overdubs, but like weird guitar. Like I just add like in Logic just a weird what's it called? Like effect to the guitar just for overdubs. And and I'm good with I'm very fast with harmonies and creative with harmonies. So I add some harmonies. But that's like the other thing is I got such a good reaction from my fans for that I Was a Fool song because they hadn't heard me sing like that because I think I had gone through enough pain that like the pain was coming through in my
Uh-huh.
voice, and also just they haven't heard me play just a guitar and voice song almost ever unless they've come to a solo show. So they were like, "Do a record like that." So I think that's a good goal for me is to really, truly just make a very sparse record and really restrict it somehow. I don't know whether it would be like only vocal and guitar and that's it, no overdubs or what. I mean, that's like the ultimate challenge. Like, you really have to have good songs to be able to pull that off.
Yeah, it would be cool to see what you would do if you self-produced the entire thing too.
I've thought about that. I've got about 5 songs that I like. I've got like probably 25 songs now in the new batch, but I think about 5 of them are keepers at the stage. But they're always cycling in and out of that A pile.
Hmm.
But yeah, they're pretty stripped back, and um, I think that would be a cool. Like sometimes I feel overwhelmed by producing my own record, and I like the idea of collaborating with someone new. But sometimes I think like, well, just keep plugging along. There's no rush. Like I have a record in the can that's coming out in October if the world doesn't end before then, and then I can, between now and then, my goal is to write mostly like probably like a ton of songs again for the next record
Hmm.
and record those as I go on my little with my tiny little setup.
Well, let's go back to you arriving in Seattle.
I lived at my brother's place for a while till I got my own house. I rented a house with some friends from my school who moved out from Carleton, and I had a job working as a science demonstrator because I had the science degree. So I worked as a science demonstrator at the Pacific Science Center for a while. And that actually was a performance job. I was performing for kids. I would perform for like 300 kids a day and do stuff like get balloons and fill them up with different gases, like with helium, with just air, and then with one of them was hydrogen, like a huge hydrogen balloon, and then I'd set them on fire.
Did you ever write any science songs and bring your guitar in to spice it up?
I did play a song for my senior thesis, my geology thesis. I did sing some some geology based songs at my like presentation of my senior thesis.
Oh, but I was picturing you at the Pacific Science Center with a guitar and like a piano tie, and then like a shirt with the periodic table of elements on it or something.
It didn't go that far.
Okay.
But I did have boa constrictors, I had bats, I had hydrogen balloons blowing up in front of like with fiery aplomb. But yeah, I guess that's the next level.
I've talked to lots of musicians, and lots of them never had any career ambitions or goals and just figured out a way, like they found themselves making a life as a professional musician. But it seems like you very explicitly wanted to prove that you could make a living as a musician. So, how did you do that? What were the steps that you took?
I started teaching guitar because I had enough skills to be able to teach okay, basic guitar. I also started teaching piano, which was so embarrassing because I am a terrible piano player and I'm a horrible music reader, but I faked my way through the audition and the guy gave me the job as this piano teacher driving around to teach kids to like rich people's kids. And eventually I just got too freaked out by that, especially because I was teaching one kid and the mom was really good. And I was so scared she was going to ask me to play. And sometimes I would have to do this like Yoda thing, like, I don't play. I just need you to play that again and just play it with a little more nuance. Like I did not know how to play what she was playing at all. I quit that one. I was just like I was sweating under the neck, under the collar every time I went over to that house. I feel bad for them, but she was a great student. She
But
didn't
but
need
if
a
you think
teacher.
about it, there's lots of basketball coaches that can't do what the players do, and teaching is more of I would say lots of it has to do with your ability to relate with other individuals and convey information than it does to be able to do exactly what you're asking them to do.
I know, but when you're learning, she was learning some technical piano pieces. You should know what the fuck you're talking about.
Right.
Like that is a quarter note, that's an eighth note, and that goes like ba ba ba. You know?
Oh, you didn't even know that much stuff.
No, no, not really. No.
Well, that's really impressive that you lasted so long just bullshitting your way through.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's half of what I was doing in lots of different realms with music. But like, I just started playing open mics, meeting people around town, leading an open mic night. I met a guy on San Juan Island, actually on Orcas Island, who recorded my first album for free. A super nice guy named Jim Brado. Just a 3 hour session. I practiced all summer because I got into Bumpershoot, which is one of those music festivals, and I didn't have anything to sell. So I was like, I should make a CD. I have 3 months to make a CD to sell at the festival. And so I did that. And then I played the festival solo show, like 50 people there. And then it was just from there, play some gigs around town, book a little house show tour down the coast. And then I met Tucker, my ex, who made my first record in 2000, I think, or 2001. And that was a good thing to do because he made that record sound really good. And then I had something people wanted to listen to. And then it was, after that, I got introduced to a European label through Tucker, Simon Raymond at Bella Union, and I'm still on that label. I had to leave for a while because I was on a major label, None Such, for a while and had to leave Bella Union. But now I'm back with Bella Union in Europe. So I started doing some tours in Europe. Then I got some big attention for my album Carbon Glacier in Europe, but that got the attention of None Such. And then I got on the major label here, and things just kept going. And then they would go backwards too. Like I got dropped from None Such, I got dropped by booking agents. I,
Um, did you
things
feel like
don't.
you were in control for most of this, or did it feel like it was happening to you?
No, I felt like I was in control. And I mean, I was running my own label. Like that DIY punk thing was deep in there, still is. And I still run my own label I have awesome managers who do all that stuff, but I'm really glad I run my own, like, I have my own label because I own my own music and I own my own masters. And that's just such a good feeling. And I don't take that lightly because a lot of people can't do that. Can't pull, it's just not possible. And I feel grateful too to like None Such and other labels that have helped me get an audience because it was hard to get an audience with my own label. And then when I was on the major, they got me an audience. Then they dropped me, but then I already had the audience. So
How
then
did
I
they
could
get
keep
you
them
an
on.
audience?
Well, they had like big ads in the New Yorker. They had big press people. They had Saxon Company. I mean, they had these like, they got a lot of press for me. And I didn't do particularly well for them, which is why they dropped me. But it was good for me. Like they got me and I toured and I had a good agent and stuff. I worked hard, but I wasn't like a crazy road dog like a lot of people. And I don't have a huge audience either. I have a mid-level audience that allows me to keep going, you know? But it's like been pretty steady for a really long time. So I feel grateful for that.
What else do we want to talk about, Laura?
How I met you and what you're up to.
Okay, we can talk about that because it's kind of germane to our conversation anyway. Um, you met me originally at Revival Drum Shop because I was working with Fred Armisen at the time. I ended up co-producing his stand-up special, and you were at our first or second show that we did while we were prepping for that. And you played the character of the NPR musician.
Yes.
And then the thing that I found really kind of like bonded us together is you mentioned to me at one point that you wanted to create a podcast about mothers who are also working musicians. And I was starting making a record, or I hadn't even really started it yet, but I had severe creative blockage happening. So we were accountable to each other, and I helped you get the podcast off the ground, and you held me accountable, and you were kind of like my coach as far as writing songs, and not even in the same capacity that you're teaching these other people, but you would just, I would give, we would give each other assignments, and then we had to do it because we were accountable to each other. And it really helped.
It was really cool. It was like a 6-month collaboration, I think, or more, or longer. Maybe it was like a year.
And now I have a record that's coming out in May on a major label.
That's awesome.
And it's all because of you, Laura. And they're going to give me a big audience too. And then they're going to drop me. I'm going to be just like you.
Yeah, but then you're going to be on Easy Street because you can start your own label because you'll already have your own audience.
And I own my master. I negotiated for that.
Good.
But if they keep me, then they'll own my next master unless I renegotiate. So we'll see.
Well, that's awesome, though. Just take a step back, right? You were not sure you could even write songs or finish that record at all. You were completely filled with a heavy darkness and doubt.
Well, I want to talk about that because I think we're kindred spirits in the sense that we're both the type of people that have active left brains as well as right brains. And I think we recognize that in each other at some point. But I was retreating in that side of my brain. And interestingly enough, I mean, I've written music professionally for my career for the last 17 years. And so I'm used to writing a high volume of music for film and TV. And it's not an uncreative endeavor when I'm doing that, but it's not the same as accessing like my inner emotional world. And there was a huge block to that that I had to get past with help from you and some other really important people in my life. But yeah, it's kind of like I had all of the tools to write music at my disposal, like physical tools and know-how, but I couldn't get inside and I couldn't face myself when I got there. So it was a huge step for me.
And what was it? I mean, that is such a hard place to be. And it's a very common place to be for songwriters. So how did you get past it?
Well, I can talk about how I got there in the first place. Because I started playing music when I was really young, and it was always, from then on, it was the center of my world. And then I started to, when I went to music school, it coincided with some other kind of traumatic things that were happening in my life at the time. And so I was also like aware of that voice that in your world was articulated by your ex-boyfriend that said, it's really hard to make a living doing this. So my response was like, I wanted to retreat into virtuosity. I wanted to be so good at playing music that I could definitely make a living, that there wouldn't be any risk, which is a foolish thing to want, but that's like the attitude that I took on when I was in music school. And then it was almost like, if I wanted to become a poet, retreating into the world of grammar and vocabulary for 10 years instead
Right.
of, writing poetry. Or if I wanted to be a sculptor, going into designing like industrial products instead, like still using those skills, but using them in service of other people.
Right.
And so I had to really get down in there and figure out what I was afraid of and talk to that part of myself. And when we started working together on your podcast, and you were helping me out with this stuff, just being accountable and forcing myself to do it, like, took away some of the power from that negative voice. And then another thing that I did was I got Mary Timony to produce the album, and I just booked a studio, even though I have my own studio, and paid money. And that somehow, like, having that on the calendar made it real, like in the same way that when I'm hired to score someone's movie, I have no idea what I'm going to write, but then, a month or two later, I have a whole score of material. I think for my stuff, I was being more precious about it, and I was like trying to achieve perfection, and that was my way of, like, the perfectionism was a way of trying to obscure the emotional truth behind it, if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's one of the biggest stumbling blocks for people is the perfectionism. Like, I need this to be totally genius or else I'm not going to do it.
right. And I think there was a voice in my head that was like, well, there's already music by John Coltrane and,
Yeah.
Leonard Cohen and Kate Bush in the world. So, and Stravinsky. So if you're not willing to go to that standard, then fuck you,
Yeah.
And what I realized is it's fine to take inspiration from geniuses like that, but you have to honor what's unique about, whatever you have to offer, because in the end, that's all you can really do,
Yeah.
and everything else, like technical proficiency or cleverness in songwriting, is really only valuable if it's in service of that truth, and you have to be willing to go to that place. And
Yeah.
so it took me a while to figure out how to go there. But now that I went there, I'm super energized. And
That's great.
I just want to keep doing it.
That's awesome. Well, I wish you the best with your release and your tour and whatever comes next, because it's just so cool to see you bring to light the things that were hidden in the darkness.
Yeah, you can use me as the poster boy for your Stanford class.
I'll just need a pull quote. I'll totally use you. I'll use you up, man.
Well, so I want to know about what you got out of the experience of making a podcast about mothers who are working musicians. Like, what did you learn about the way other people do things that was maybe applicable to your own life? And what did you get out of it?
Well, the main thing I got was a feeling of community, because most of my friends are working moms, but not musicians. And I was really hungry to talk to some more working moms who are musicians. And there are a ton of them. When I made my list, I was like, there's only going to be like 5 of us. And I was like, there's 100 people on this list. And that's just beginning my invite list, and some of them were super famous, I would never expect them to get back. But then a lot of them became friends. And now we'll hang out sometimes. And I mean, a lot of them don't live in Portland, but some of them do. And I have made other connections through them, musicians they play with, or her husband's a film guy and made my video. And, so it definitely helped me build my community of people who have like-minded approaches to things. And, I tried to get a pretty diverse group in terms of different types of musicians and people of different backgrounds and ages and life experiences, and was able to just see how many different ways there are to do this. And some of them were single moms, some of them were partnered, some of them became divorced, some of them, I don't know if I had any gay moms, but yeah, I did. Michelle Degliacello.
Yeah, and actually, she's going to come on this show tomorrow.
Good. And you met her maybe partly through me? I don't
Yeah, and
remember.
now we're good friends. So
That's
that even
great.
I even benefited from the community that you put together with that show.
That's great. And well, you are a great producer. We didn't say that. We didn't mention you produced it and mixed it.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
and I couldn't keep it going because I couldn't make it fly financially. And I need everything I do now, especially as I am now a single mom, to make everything that I do fly financially. But maybe I'll do it again someday. I learned a lot. It was really fun. It was also a ton of work, like just technical knick-knacky work, introducing, like doing the research for the introduction, a lot of writing too, like writing a proper introduction, and then just all the little things behind the scenes that people don't think about. Like I learned how much goes into a podcast. I didn't really think about that before.
Right. Well, now that you're diving into audio production, maybe it would be a good excuse to do another season.
It would, but then I have to just, I have to figure out the finances. Like I have to make that really work.
Mm-hmm.
Any work that I'm doing now has to make money. I mean, as much as I can. And so basically my main money making activity is songwriting. So that's really where I try to focus my energies because my energies are limited, as everyone's are, but especially as like I'm the primary parent and just sort of like overwhelmed with selling a house and hopefully buying a house and just so many things in my life that songwriting can take backseat. And I want it to, because it's my first love and it is my main way to make money, I want to make sure I prioritize it above
Mm-hmm.
any other creative thing. Although right now I'm working on 2 music videos, which are really fun and the like most technical and out there music videos I've ever been involved with. And they're both ones that I've envisioned and am like producing and are becoming these big jobs that are taking tons of hours of time. One of them is a chalk drawing lyric video where I'm drawing on this enormous bike path lyrics and then people are illustrating the lyrics above in neon chalk. It's a song about brightness and people burning out and so it's going to be really bright and beautiful. And then the other one is a dance video because I've been on Tinder and I've been meeting people, like random people from the internet, and going on dates. And one of them ended up being a really
You sent me
amazing.
some screen pics of some of them or screen grabs from your Tinder app.
I did?
Yeah.
Oh, God. Well, there have been a lot.
Good looking dudes.
Yeah, I'm definitely dating handsome people. And some of them are super nice, and some of them are weirdos, and some of them are not cool, but whatever. That is just like any swath of society. You're going to get like a whole random mix. And one of them is named Nelson, and he's a wonderful dancer. He's a professional Brazilian dancer and dance teacher. And so one of the songs on my upcoming album has kind of a little bit of a Brazilian rhythm to it. And it crossed my mind. Like the reason I reached out to him on Tinder was because, well, he looked interesting. He looked good. But he also said he likes to dance and he is a dancer. I've been wanting to dance for so many years. I have been wanting to dance and like go out to clubs and go dancing and like take a dance class and do whatever it is, salsa or whatever. I don't care. I just want to dance and I didn't dance at all for like 20 years. And now I'm dancing. And so we're going to dance in this video and he's choreographed a lot of it. And then I'm choreographing some of it. And then my other dance friend is helping me with, and I'm learning to dance. And I also take his class, his Brazilian dance class once a week. And it's so hard. It's like the most complicated musical thing I've ever done because with the way he dances, and this is standard Brazilian dance, but to me it's completely out there. The hands are doing one thing, the hips are doing one thing, the feet are doing another thing. It's like the most polyrhythmic thing I've ever experienced.
How's your
So for
Portuguese coming along?
my Portuguese is terrible. All I know is bom dia.
Bom dia.
Oh God. See, you're even better than me at Portuguese. So yeah. Anyway, my point is the music videos, the dancing is going to be super hard for me, like very vulnerable and scary, but also I'm getting a little better at it. Like I'm learning to dance. It's so fun.
Well, it's also important to go to that vulnerable, scary place as much as possible, right?
In art, yes, for sure. That's where the good stuff is. We all know that, but it still sucks. You don't like the feeling of it when you're going
Mm-hmm.
into it.
Well, you coached me through it when I was going through it.
Yeah, and Nelson's a great teacher. And we stopped dating because I didn't want to mix work and dating.
Yeah. Um, do you want to talk about getting divorced at all?
I mean, not really. I'm like, it's no, not really.
Okay.
I mean, if you have any specific questions to ask me about it, you can. But
Well, how is your outlook now? Like, how are you feeling right now?
well, I go through like I'm calling them dating rampages, and then I stop. And so I've been dating on and off for maybe 3 months, maybe two. And sometimes I've gotten braver, and I'll just go up to someone in a bar now. Like I go out by myself, and I pick up people in bars sometimes, or I'll find them on the internet. But I'm not dating in my community. I'm not dating in musicians or anything like that. Um,
That's wise.
yeah, I think and I'm also just interested in different people, like people who I haven't really been around before. Different ages, different races, different backgrounds, and so I will go on a rampage where I'll like date. Like last weekend, I went on 3 dates, and then after a while, feel kind of empty. I'm just like, all right, you know what? And I again, it's back to the energy. Like for me, the dating is fun, but it takes a lot of energy. It's like
Hmm.
mental energy, physical energy. You got to look good. You got to present yourself well. You got to like figure out where you're going to go and what you're going to do. And I have energy. I need to have energy for other things. Like I said, selling a house, buying a house. I have to have energy for my kids constantly. Also, keeping up a house and then keeping my career going, writing songs, teaching, making music videos, like all this stuff. So I don't have a lot of energy for dating. So I'll go on like a rampage and then I'll stop.
Hmm.
And then, so I feel like right now, I mean, I go through waves of like really sad that my marriage ended and um, have to sort myself out in terms of what I want to do romantically or with a producer. Like, those are big decisions, like finding a mate or finding a producer or like new artistic collaborators. It can feel overwhelming and like I can get bummed out by it. But then when I'm like on a good day, I'm like, wow, this is my second coming. This is my springtime of my life. Like I'm dancing, I'm meeting cool people, I'm out there doing whatever. People think I'm cute. I have a great career. I have awesome kids. I have a live in nanny. Come on. That is so lucky. She is awesome. She's my wifey. She's like the best person in my life. Her name's Lori, and she allows me to go on these dates and like takes care of the kids so I can go practice dancing with Nelson or whatever. And I feel like, wow, I can do anything. I can be a dancer. I can make up crazy music videos and pull them off. I can write songs. I can produce my own record. I can find cool people to date. I might not ever want to be monogamous and partnered again. I might want to, but this is the time for me to discover what it is I truly want and manifest it.
That's a great place to be.
It is.
Um, Before we go, what's an assignment that you would give people that are listening to this if they wanted to write songs? So you're teaching this class in songwriting. What's the first step that people can take?
Well, I'm going to shamelessly plug my product. I I invented a songwriting game called Kaleidoscope Creativity Cards. And you just grab one card from 3 different decks and you follow the prompts. And one is a lyric prompt, one is a musical prompt, and one is an inspirational prompt. And then you write your song in that sitting. You don't need facility on an instrument, really. It's great if you know a few chords, but honestly, anyone can learn like 3 chords on the ukulele or piano or guitar in one day. So you don't need more than 3 chords. You don't even need more than 2 chords, frankly, but let's go for 3.
Hmm.
And if you really want to get into it, you probably don't need any chords. But if you follow the system where you write a song in that sitting, then do it again the next day, and the next day, you will have written 40 songs because there's 40 songs or cards in each deck. And then you can shuffle the decks and do it again, and you'll get different combinations of prompts. And the idea is that you're using restriction to find freedom, and that's one of my favorite things about creativity is when you restrict yourself, like I was saying before, like maybe I should really restrict myself to just writing songs that, or making a record that's just my voice and guitar, like no overdubs. That's a great restriction. It gives you so much freedom to really explore songwriting and get those awesome best songs that hold up under that like rigorous microscope. And so I think, for me, the reason I made these cards was I did it to like push myself to write differently. But the thing, I have had quite a few people express a lot of happiness about having used them because the idea is you're not, it's more process oriented than product. And because you're writing every day, you're just churning them out and learning as you go. And I feel like that's one of the most important things to do is just write songs. And you will learn by writing them. And don't write fragments. You have to write the whole song. By that, I mean like a verse and a chorus, or like an actual song, not just fragments. We know the difference.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes a verse and a chorus is enough. I mean, 2 parts can be a good song.
Yeah. And sometimes it's like, the same chords over and over, but you change the melody in the verse and the chorus. Or there's like infinite ways to write songs, and sometimes they're very structured and sometimes they're not. But my point is that these prompts can give you a little bit of guidance in terms of just like getting rid of that fear of the blank page, which can really mess with people and make them just feel like they can't do it. This turns it into more of a fun game, and you're less attached to the outcome, more of a practice oriented thing that allows you to produce work that, and I think inevitably as you create a lot of work, you're going to like some of it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. If you go into writing a song with the intention to make something amazing, it's going to be really hard to live up to that.
Yes,
but if you
is.
approach it like you're going fishing, you might catch something, you might not, but you're doing it every day, then you have a better chance of coming up with something inadvertently great.
Exactly.
And it also makes sense, the idea of putting limits and restrictions on yourself makes a lot of sense to me, because one of the reasons I think I'm able to write so fast for film and TV is because a lot of what I'm writing is dictated by the restrictions of the medium. I can't write something that goes over the dialogue, and the way that it's edited dictates the tempo oftentimes. And
yes.
Once I start a show, then I create a sound world for that particular show or that particular film. And so then I can stay within that instrumentation for that world. And it took me a while to figure that out, but I can put those same kind of restrictions on myself when I'm writing my own songs, except then I can decide what the palette is going to be, and I can decide, when to stop and when it's done.
Yeah. Well, if you ever get stuck with your next album cycle in your writing, I'll send you, or even if you're not stuck, I'll send you a game in the mail.
Great. Anything else that you wanted to talk about, Laura?
I'm feeling great. Thanks for the conversation, Joe. It's always so nice to talk to you.
So nice to talk to you too. Anybody else that you would recommend getting on this show during quarantine times? This is so just for folks that are listening. I'm trying this new format out just for fun during this quarantine, the quarantine days. I might even put out one of these every day. So do you have any suggestions, Laura, or anybody that you'd want to hear on this show?
Well, there's just infinite numbers of them. I mean...
Okay, I put you on the spot.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say, because I'm meeting with her husband soon, who's doing a music video for me, Lance Bangs, but Corin Tucker from Slater Kinney's always cool to hear from her. She's like in a cool spot in her life and career right now. And she's a Portland friend who I made through the podcast.
We had her former drummer, Janet, on the show. And maybe it would be fair enough to have Corin on the show, too.
Yeah, or Carrie, too. I mean, they're all so interesting. And I saw Janet recently, too, and she's such a powerhouse. I want to listen to that episode. And I want to listen to the Michelle one. Is it going to be like
I'm just going to put these up. I'm going to put them up on the day of.
Okay, great.
So earlier we were talking about how much work goes into a podcast. And this is an opportunity for me, as we're nearing the 250th episode of my show, to kind of divorce myself from the higher production values that I was holding the show to, and
Yeah.
to just put something out immediately and not belabor it as much and see how it goes. Because
That's
I
great.
think folks are excited to listen to stuff since everybody's stuck at home anyway. And so
That's great.
it's just a way to mix it up a little bit.
Yeah, well, I'll be checking them out.
Well, thanks so much, Laura. Have a great
Thank
day.
you.
Okay.
Thanks, Joe.
Bye. The Trap Set is produced by me, Joe Wong, along with Chris Karwowski, who also edits the program. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at The Trap Set, and visit our website, thetrapset.net, to subscribe to our show for free. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please donate to our show. If you can't afford to donate, please tell a friend and give us a good rating on iTunes. Send your feedback and guest requests to thetrapset@gmail.com.